Arthur's family truth. I was still sitting in the notary's parking lot. The house transfer papers were on the passenger seat right next to me, $320,000, signed and done. Then my phone buzzed. My son, I figured he was calling to say thank you. He wasn't. He sent me 4 sentences telling me not to come to Thanksgiving. I read it twice. Then I put the phone down, looked at those papers, and made the easiest decision of my life. That morning, I had walked out of the notary's office feeling like a good father. My name is Larry Harlow. I'm 64. I ran a furniture manufacturing business in Phoenix for 30 years, frozen dinners, no vacations, same truck since 2011. Sold it 3 years ago and had been quietly saving ever since. The $320,000 house was what all of it had been building toward. Something real for my son, Craig. A foundation, not an apartment he was renting from someone else. This was the moment I saved for. Then the text came. Craig's message read, "Dad, thanks for everything with the house, really. But Diane's mom is flying in from Seattle for the holidays. She needs space to feel comfortable. It'd probably be better if you skip Thanksgiving this year. We'll see you another time." I sat in that parking lot for a long time. Read it again, then again. I started typing. After what I just deleted it. The ink isn't even deleted that. I typed one word, okay, sent it, put my phone face down on the folder. Then I called Roy Caldwell. Roy had been my floor manager for 15 years. We'd been friends since before Craig started school. I told him what happened in about 4 sentences. He went quiet. Then he said, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I said, "but I'm not doing nothing." I drove home, didn't stop anywhere. Didn't eat. Went straight to my office and pulled out the accordion folder that Diane had once called embarrassing. She'd seen it in my office during one of their rare visits and said, "Are you hoarding paper, Larry?" I'd smiled and said nothing. That folder was 20 years of every check I'd written, every receipt I'd signed, every text message I'd saved on paper because I had a feeling I might need it someday. That night, I spread everything across my desk and started counting $22,000 for Craig and Diane's wedding. That was a ceremony their side couldn't afford but insisted on. I paid for it without being asked twice. $6,000 for the honeymoon in Cancun. $12,000 loaned to Craig for a car 3 years ago. He promised to start paying me back in 6 months. Still waiting. $8,000 to cover credit card debt he called a temporary rough patch. $10,000 in furniture when they moved into their apartment. Because Diane wanted everything new. Nothing used, nothing from my garage, nothing sensible. That's $58,000 with receipts. But that's not the full picture. For 3 years, I'd been sending Craig those $105 a month, no questions, no conditions, because he told me they were tight and I didn't want them struggling. That's $54,000. There was $5,500 for medical bills in 2021. Around $12,000 in cash over the years, holiday envelopes, emergency calls, things I handed over without writing anything down because I trusted him. When I added it all up, the number was $148,000, give or take. And that didn't include the $320,000 house I'd signed over 8 hours earlier. I'm not someone who cries easily. Didn't that night either? What I felt was something colder than sadness. More like clarity. Like you've been squinting at something for years and finally put on the right glasses. I thought about a conversation Craig and I had 4 years ago. We were at dinner, just the two of us, which was rare enough by then. He told me he was grateful for everything I'd done. Said he didn't know what he'd do without my support. I remember feeling good about that, thinking the relationship was real. Now I was sitting in my office at midnight, looking at $148,000 in documented generosity, and I had just been asked not to come to Thanksgiving. In the house I bought by a woman I'd never met, Carol Sutton, Diane's mother, flying in from Seattle, needs space to feel comfortable. I closed the folder, made a list of 3 things I needed to do in the morning, then I went to bed. I slept fine. That part always surprised people when I told them later. But the truth is, once you've made a decision, there's nothing left to lose sleep over. First thing Wednesday morning, I called Dennis Webb. Dennis had handled the legal side when I sold my business 3 years ago. Sharp guy doesn't waste your time asking questions that don't matter. I gave him the short version on the phone, signed the house Tuesday morning, got the text Tuesday afternoon, want to know if there's a way to pull it back. He told me to come in at 2. I brought everything. The house transfer papers, the text message printed out and enlarged, the accordion folder with 10 years of financial records sorted by date and amount. Dennis read through it without saying much. He made notes on a yellow legal pad. The only sound in the room was his pen. After about 15 minutes, he looked up. Arizona law has a 30-day completion window on property transfers of this size, he said. During that window, a donor can revoke the gift if the recipient demonstrates conduct that would justify disinheritance, gross ingratitude, being excluded from Thanksgiving on the same day you sign the paperwork. That's textbook. He pulled a statute book off the shelf and slid it across the table with one finger on the page. I read the relevant section twice. How fast can we move? I asked. I can have revocation papers ready by end of day, he said. I signed them that afternoon. Same pen I'd used at the notary's office the morning before. I didn't feel dramatic about it. Felt more like correcting a math error before it became permanent. Dennis's office contacted Ruth Foster, the notary who'd handled the original transfer, and she filed the revocation with Maricopa County before 5 p.m. A certified letter went out to Craig's workplace that evening, signature required. Roy called me that night to check in. I told him what I'd done. He went quiet for a second, then said, "Good." That was it. No lecture, no second guessing, just good. That's why we'd been friends for 20 years. Craig called 2 days later. His voice was doing that thing people do when they know they're wrong but haven't decided to admit it yet. Forced calm. Careful word choice. "Dad, look, Patricia just wants a cozy family thing. She's particular about holidays. You know how mothers-in-law can be. We thought it'd be less stressful if—" "Stop," I said. He stopped. "I understand perfectly." I said, "Your mother-in-law, who I have never met, doesn't want me in the house I purchased for you, and you agreed to that. You sent me that text the same afternoon I signed the papers." Silence. "It's not like that," he said. "We'll do something with you the weekend after, or Christmas. Diane's already stressed about cooking for. How much do you still owe me for the car, Craig?" "What, Dad, that's not? We're talking about Thanksgiving?" $12,000. "Loaned 3 years ago, you said 6 months. What payment number are we on? Nothing." "I'm reconsidering a lot of things," I said. "We'll talk soon." I ended the call before he could respond. 2 minutes later, my phone lit up again. Craig calling back. I let it ring. He called 3 more times in the next hour. I let all of them go. The repayment demand went out the following week. Dennis drafted it clean, every dollar itemized, every check copied, every text message where Craig wrote, "Just until next month." Dad attached as supporting documentation. The loans I could legally recover, the $12,000 car loan, the $8,000 credit card payoff, the $10,000 furniture, total demand, $30,000 payment due in 60 days. That's when Diane got on the phone. Craig called me 3 days after the certified letter arrived at their house. He barely got a sentence out before I heard shuffling, and then her voice came on. "You manipulative old man. No greeting, no pretense, just straight to it." I didn't say anything, let her go. She went through a list of everything they'd supposedly done for me. The visits maybe 4 times in the past year, always under 2 hours. The phone calls Craig made when he needed something. The way they dealt with my expectations. "Then you think handing over money means you own people, that we owe you holidays?" I pulled up my phone's notes app where I'd typed the summary figures. "Let me refresh your memory," I said. $22,000 for a wedding I wasn't consulted on. $6,000 for a honeymoon. $12,000 for a car with 0 payments made. Them $8,000 for credit cards. $10,000 for furniture you didn't want secondhand. $54,000 in monthly support over 3 years. That's what I've done. "What exactly have you done?" "We included you in our lives," she said. "That should mean something." "It did," I said. "It doesn't anymore." I hung up. The house went quiet. I stood in my kitchen for a few minutes, not moving. I wasn't angry. I want to be clear about that. What I felt was more like the absence of something, like a weight I'd been carrying so long I'd stopped noticing it, and now it was gone. I had a lot more work to do, but the hardest decision was already made. Roy was the one who connected me with Neil. No last name offered. No business card. Roy had used him once years back to track down a contractor who'd skipped out on a job with a $14,000 advance. Roy said the guy was thorough, fast, and didn't ask questions you hadn't already answered. That was enough for me. We met at a diner off the I-10. Neil showed up exactly on time, ordered nothing, and set a manila folder on the table between us before I'd finished my coffee. "Carol Sutton," he said, 59 years old. Retired early from teaching high school, not voluntarily. School district let her go in 2021. Budget cuts plus a complaint from a parent she never resolved. She hasn't held steady work since. I opened the folder. First page was a credit report. $45,000 in outstanding debt spread across 6 creditors. 2 of them had already sent to collections. The second page was an eviction notice from a Scottsdale property management company, dated March 2023. She'd been removed from her condo after 4 months of missed rent. She's been living with your son and daughter-in-law since May 2023, Neil said. Rent-free. That's 14 months. He tapped a stack of pages near the bottom of the folder. Those are text messages. Obtained legally, Diane gave her access to a shared cloud account about 2 years ago. Carol never changed the login. I pulled them out and started reading. The first one that stopped me was from 8 months after Carol moved in. Sent to Diane at 11 at night. Your file is loaded. He sold that business for real money. Make him pay for the house. He's retired. What else is his money for? Next one, 3 months later. Don't let him control you with his generosity. Men like that give with one hand and expect everything with the other. You deserve what he has, one from last Christmas. You and Craig need to stop being grateful and start being smart. Old men need to feel useful, or they get difficult. Use that. I read every page. Took me about 20 minutes. Neil sat across the table and waited without fidgeting. She'd been running this play for 2 years, not randomly, consistently. Message after message coaching Diane on how to extract, how to reframe my generosity as control, how to position herself as the reasonable voice in the room while she was living in that room for free. I closed the folder. What do I owe you? I asked. He told me. I paid him cash, added $300 extra for the speed, and drove home with the folder on my passenger seat, the same spot where the house papers had been sitting 2 weeks earlier. Roy was the one who connected me with Neil, and he was also the first call I made after reading that file. You were right, I told him. She's been working this for 2 years. What are you going to do with it, he asked. Show the family, I said. Then let it spread on its own. That Tuesday, I texted Sharon and Scott. Sharon was my late wife Linda's younger sister. Scott was Linda's brother. Both of them had watched Craig grow up. Both had been at every Thanksgiving, every birthday, every school play Linda and I ever sat through together. Family dinner Thursday, 6 p.m. Need to show you both something. Neither asked questions. Both said yes within the hour. I made pot roast. Simple. The kind Linda used to make on Sunday nights when the weather turned cold. We ate first, didn't talk about it. After I cleared the plates, I opened my laptop and laid it all out. The house, the text message, the revocation, the repayment demand. Then Carol's file, every page, every screenshot, in order. Sharon read the texts with her jaw tight. Didn't say anything until she got to the last page. Then she looked up at me. She's been poisoning that girl against you for 2 years, Sharon said, while living in their house for free, while Craig thought it was just normal family tension. That's what the evidence shows, I said. Scott was standing by the window, still holding a stack of pages. His hands weren't completely steady. Craig doesn't know about this, he said. It wasn't a question. Probably not, I said. Carol works quietly. Sharon already had her phone out. She walked to the living room and called Craig right then. I could hear her voice shift from calm to firm to something harder. Your father showed us everything tonight. The money, the text messages, Carol's debt, 14 months rent-free in your house. How do you exclude this man from Thanksgiving after what he's done for you? After what your mother would have wanted for him, she made 3 more calls that night, her daughter, Scott's son. A cousin on Linda's side who'd always stayed close to Craig. By the next morning, the extended family knew the full story. Not a rumor, not a version. The documented facts. Roy texted me a few days later. He'd run into Craig at the hardware store. Said Craig looked like he hadn't slept all week. Didn't stop to talk. Just nodded and kept moving. The 60-day deadline fell on a Friday. By that Thursday, Craig and Diane had been turned down by 3 banks. Roy had spotted Diane alone at a coffee shop the week before, sitting at a table covered in paperwork with a calculator in front of her. He texted me a photo from across the room without saying anything. I could see the bank letterhead. I could see how she was sitting. Diane's parents drove down from Seattle that Thursday evening. Her father set a cashier's check for $10,000 on the kitchen counter. Didn't hug his daughter, didn't sit down, just looked at her and said he was ashamed of how she'd treated me, and that the money came with a written repayment agreement, 5% interest, 2 years, signed before he left the apartment. Craig borrowed another $5,000 from a coworker named Howard. Howard made him sign a promissory note before writing the check, said nothing personal, just protecting myself. Craig signed it without arguing, watched another relationship quietly shift from trust to paperwork. They sold Diane's Lexus for $15,000 under market because they needed it moved fast and buyers could read the situation. They sold furniture for about $1,500. After that month's rent and bills came out, what was left in savings came to around $6,500. The math. $15,000 from the car, $1,500 from furniture, $6,500 from savings after expenses. That's $23,000 they could actually direct toward me. The $10,000 from Diane's father and the $5,000 from Howard were loans, debts they'd have to repay elsewhere. At 3:47 p.m. on Friday, my bank sent a notification. Wire transfer received, $23,000, $7,000 short of the $30,000 demand. Craig's email arrived 11 minutes later, no excuses, no drama. Just a plain statement that they'd done everything they could, listed exactly how they'd gotten to $23,000, and asked for 30 more days on the remaining balance. I read it once, closed my laptop, and called Dennis. Dennis drafted the loan agreement for the remaining $7,000 that same Friday evening. 7% annual interest. Monthly payments over 12 months. Every clause written the same way you'd write it for a stranger at a bank. No family language, no softening. Just terms, obligations, and consequences for default. I forwarded it to Craig without any message attached. No explanation. No, here's what I've decided, just the document. He signed it Sunday night. The DocuSign confirmation came through at 11:43 p.m. I saved it to my legal folder, set a calendar reminder for the first payment due date, and went to bed. The following Sunday, Carol's situation came to a head. I wasn't there, but Roy had a friend who lived 2 floors above Craig and Diane's apartment, and word travels in small communities whether you want it to or not. Roy called me that evening and told me what he'd heard. Diana had found Carol's suitcase half-packed in the hallway that morning. Carol apparently had been making quiet plans to move in with a friend named Nancy in Tempe. But the friend had backed out the night before, so Carol was stuck. The suitcase was in the hallway, and the whole thing unraveled over breakfast. What started as a conversation became something louder. Diane went through the list: 14 months of free rent, every promise Carol had made about helping financially, every time Carol had steered a conversation about me toward resentment instead of reality. Craig stood in the kitchen doorway and didn't defend Carol. That was apparently the moment Carol understood the ground had shifted. After everything I've done for you, Carol said, I'm your mother. You moved in with nothing and left us with debt, Diane told her. You told me my father-in-law was trying to control us while you were sitting in our spare bedroom for free. You promised you had friends who could help when we needed $30,000. You had nothing. You've always had nothing. Get out. Carol grabbed her suitcase. At the door she turned and said something about ungrateful children and how Diane would end up alone. Diane closed the door on her mid-sentence. Roy said the neighbor heard it from 2 floors up. That was the last time Carol Sutton was in their home. She called Dennis Webb's office twice the following week. His receptionist told her both times that he wasn't available to take her call. No callback, no explanation, just a closed door. Roy told me Carol had apparently expected more of a fight. The quiet rejection rattled her more than anything else would have. 6 weeks after the loan agreement was signed, Craig sent me an email at 8:47 on a Thursday night. I know the time because I noticed it after hours. Not written at his desk during the day. A private moment, subject line, no excuses. Dad, I understand we were wrong. Not just about Thanksgiving, about everything. The years of taking without appreciating. Letting Diane and Carol change the way I saw you. Convincing myself it was normal because you never complained. I let you be excluded, disrespected, treated like a source of money instead of a person. I don't know if that's fixable, but I want to try. Not because I need something from you, because you deserve better than the son I've been. No requests, no justification, no attempt to explain his way around it. I read it 3 times, then I closed my laptop and left it alone for 4 days. On the 5th day, I called Roy, told him about the email. He listened. Then he said, What do you want to do? I want to see if it's real, I said. Then make him show you, Roy said. In person. Craig was sitting in his car in my business parking lot on a Tuesday afternoon. I spotted him from my 2nd floor window at 2:15. He didn't get out. Just sat there with his hands in his lap, not on his phone, not moving. Waiting, I watched him for 20 minutes. Then I walked downstairs, propped the conference room door open, and went to the lobby entrance. He got out of his car when he saw me. Walked over with the posture of someone who had already accepted whatever came next. The confidence he used to carry everywhere was gone. What was left looked more like his actual face. Thank you for not just leaving, he said. Conference room, I said. You've got the floor. We sat across from each other. I didn't sit at the head of the table. I gestured for him to start. He said he'd used me like an ATM for years. Said he'd told himself it was fine because I never pushed back, and that the not pushing back was something he'd mistaken for agreement. He said he'd watched Carol work on Diane for over a year and chosen not to see it because seeing it would have required doing something about it. He said the house should have been a moment he remembered for the rest of his life for the right reasons. And instead he'd handed that moment to a woman who'd been plotting it from a rent-free spare bedroom. He cried, not performed crying. The kind that comes out quiet and doesn't stop cleanly. I let him finish. I never stopped loving you, I said. Revoking the house, the repayment demand, not answering your calls, that was all love. The other version, where I kept letting it happen, that would have been the cruel thing for both of us. Can you forgive me? He asked. Ask me again in a year, I said. Right now what I can offer is this. Coffee next week, public place, 1 hour, we go from there. No grand gestures. Just consistent, respectful behavior over time, and I need you to understand this is the last time. I'm 64. I don't have another cycle of this in me. If it goes back to what it was, I'm done. No argument, no drama, no explanation, just done. He nodded. Said he understood. Said he'd prove it in actions, not words. I stood up and offered my hand, not a hug, a handshake. He took it. Don't be late, I said. The cabin closed escrow on a Wednesday in late January. Blue Ridge Mountains, western North Carolina, 3 hours from the nearest city, which was part of the point. Small place, covered porch, wood stove, a bedroom with a window that faces east so the morning light comes in right. Nothing fancy. The kind of place that takes 20 minutes to clean and costs nothing to maintain. Linda had wanted to see those mountains for as long as I could remember. We talked about it for years. After I sold the business, she'd said, now we can finally go. She didn't make it. That's a weight I carry and don't talk about much. But I made a promise to myself when I bought that cabin, the first time I sat on that porch, I'd do it for both of us. First evening there, I made coffee on the wood stove and took it outside. No phone, no spreadsheets, no certified letters going anywhere. The trees went on farther than I could see. The air was cold and clean and completely quiet except for wind moving through branches. I sat there until the light went flat and the temperature dropped, and I finally went back inside. I didn't feel triumphant. Didn't feel sad. Felt like myself again, like a man who knew his own worth and had stopped offering it at a discount. Craig and Diane have been coming to dinner once a month. They show up on time. They don't ask for anything. It's still careful, still measured, but it's real. I haven't invited them to the cabin yet. There's a chair on that porch I think of as Linda's. When the time is right, when I've seen enough months of who Craig is choosing to be, maybe I'll tell him about it. Maybe we'll all sit out there together someday. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Some men spend their whole lives being generous. The ones who earn respect learn when to stop. I didn't cut him off because I stopped loving him. I cut him off because I finally loved myself enough to demand better. One question before you go. Have you ever been in Larry's position? Giving everything and getting nothing back? Tell me below, and if this story was worth your time, subscribe. There's more where that came from.